There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes he's been waiting for permission that will never come. You've been standing at the edge of your own potential, waiting for the right time, the right feeling, the right sign from the universe that it's finally safe to become who you're supposed to be. But that moment never arrives. Because the world doesn't hand out starting guns, it just keeps moving. And every day you wait is another day the gap widens between the life you're living and the life you know you're capable of. So let me tell you something that might sting a little. You don't need more time. You need more honesty. Most people spend years circling the same problems, telling themselves stories that make the waiting feel justified. I'm not ready yet. I need to figure it out first. Once things calm down, then I'll start. But things never calm down. Life doesn't get easier. It just gets later. And one day you wake up and realize you've been preparing for a life you never actually lived. You've been rehearsing for a performance that never started. Standing in the wings, watching other people take the stage, convincing yourself that your moment is coming soon. But it's not coming. Because you never stepped into the light. I'm not here to give you another motivational speech that makes you feel good for 30 minutes and then fades by tomorrow morning. I'm here to tell you that you can fix your entire life in one day. Not by changing everything, but by changing the one thing that's been holding everything else hostage. Your decision to start? See, most men don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they never made a final decision about who they were going to become. They kept one foot in their old life, just in case the new one didn't work out. They hedged their bets, they played it safe, and safety became their prison. There's a type of man who walks through life like he's apologizing for taking up space. He keeps his voice low, his dreams smaller, his presence dimmed. Not because he's weak, but because somewhere along the way, he learned that being seen was dangerous, that wanting more was selfish, that standing out was arrogant. So he made himself smaller and smaller until he barely recognized the shape of his own shadow. You know what that feels like, don't you? That quiet ache in your chest when you're alone at night. The one that whispers you're capable of more, but you can't quite reach it. It's like standing outside a house you used to live in, looking through the windows at a version of yourself that didn't make it, the version that had fire, the version that believed, the version that didn't know fear could be so loud it drowns out everything else. Maybe you've spent years carrying other people's expectations on your back, your father's disappointment, your mother's worry, your partner's doubt, your friends who stopped believing in you the moment you stopped moving, and slowly, without even noticing, you started believing them. You started seeing yourself through their eyes instead of your own. You became the story they told about you, not the story you were supposed to write. And here's the part that hurts the most. You know you're better than this. You lie in bed some nights and feel it burning in your bones. That restless energy that says you were made for something bigger, something real. Something that matters. But when morning comes, you hit snooze. You scroll, you distract, you numb. Because facing the truth is harder than avoiding it. And the truth is this: you've been lying to yourself for so long that you've started to believe the lie is who you actually are. There's a scene I think about sometimes. A man sitting alone in his apartment at 3 a.m. The city outside is quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like the only person awake in the world. He's staring at his hands, not because there's anything on them, but because he's wondering when they stopped building things, when they stopped creating, when they stopped reaching for anything that mattered. His phone is face down on the table. 37 unread messages from people who don't really know him. A job that pays the bills, but drains his soul. A reflection in the window he doesn't recognize anymore. And in that moment, he asks himself the question that changes everything. How did I get here? Not in a self-pitying way, but in the way a man asks when he's finally ready to stop running. Because the answer to that question is the beginning of everything. You got here one compromise at a time, one excuse at a time, one "I'll start tomorrow" at a time. You got here by saying yes when you meant no, by staying quiet when you should have spoken, by shrinking when you should have expanded, by choosing comfort over growth so many times that comfort became your identity. And now you're standing in the ruins of a life you never really chose, wondering how to rebuild. Here's what I've learned after walking through my own fire. You don't rebuild by adding more. You rebuild by stripping everything away until only the truth remains. Most people try to fix their lives by piling new habits on top of old patterns. They read the books, they watch the videos, they make the vision boards, but nothing changes because they never dealt with the foundation, and the foundation is rotten. It's built on beliefs you didn't choose, fears you inherited, and a version of yourself that was never really you. So before you can add anything, you have to burn it down. I'm talking about radical honesty, the kind that makes your hands shake, the kind that forces you to look at the man in the mirror and admit what you've been avoiding. You're not stuck because life is hard. You're stuck because you've been living someone else's version of your life. And deep down, you know it. You feel it every time you say "I'm fine" when you're not. Every time you laugh at jokes you don't find funny. Every time you nod along to conversations you don't care about. Every time you pretend to want things you were told to want. There's a weight to living like that, a heaviness that settles in your chest and never quite leaves. Some people carry it their entire lives. They medicate it with distractions. They bury it under achievements. They drown it in noise. But it never goes away. Because the weight isn't from the world. It's from the distance between who you are and who you're pretending to be. So here's where we start. One day. Not next week. Not when things calm down. Not when you feel ready. Today. Because the life you're waiting to live doesn't start when conditions are perfect. It starts when you decide it does. And that decision doesn't require permission, resources, or confidence. It just requires honesty. Sit down somewhere quiet, no music, no distractions, just you and a blank page, and write down 3 things: the habits that are killing you slowly, the people who drain your energy, the lies you keep telling yourself. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't make excuses. Don't tell the version that makes you sound better. Write the truth, the raw, ugly, uncomfortable truth. This is the part most people skip because it's painful. It's easier to keep moving, keep pretending, keep numbing. But pain is information. And if you're willing to sit with it, it will show you exactly what needs to change. Maybe you've been telling yourself you're too busy, when the truth is you're just scared. Maybe you've been blaming circumstances, when the truth is you've been choosing comfort over courage. Maybe you've been saying you don't have time, when the truth is you've been spending hours on things that don't matter. The habits that are killing you, they're not just bad behaviors. They're escape routes. They're the things you do when you're avoiding the thing you know you should be doing. The scrolling, the drinking, the sleeping in, the half-hearted efforts that let you tell yourself you tried. These aren't flaws, they're symptoms. And the disease is fear. Fear of failing, fear of being seen, fear of discovering that maybe you're not as special as you hoped. But here's the truth. You won't know until you try. And trying beats wondering every single time. Now the people. This is the hardest part. Because we want to believe that everyone in our life wants the best for us, but they don't. Some people are invested in keeping you exactly where you are. Not out of malice, but out of comfort. Because if you change, they have to question why they haven't. If you grow, it reflects their stagnation. If you rise, it exposes their excuses. So they pull you back down with jokes, with doubt, with the casual cruelty of who do you think you are? And if you're not careful, you'll start believing them. There are people in your life right now who are draining you. You know who they are. You feel it every time you leave their presence. That subtle exhaustion, that heaviness, that sense that you just gave away a piece of yourself and got nothing in return. Distance yourself. Not with drama, not with announcements, just quietly, deliberately create space. Because proximity shapes identity. And if you surround yourself with people who normalize mediocrity, mediocrity becomes your standard. And finally, the lies. The stories you tell yourself to make sense of why things are the way they are. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I missed my chance. People like me don't do things like that. These aren't truths. They're shields. They protect you from disappointment by keeping you from trying, but they also keep you from living. Here's what I want you to understand. The version of you that believes those lies is not the real you. It's the you that was built by fear, rejection, and other people's limitations. The real you is buried underneath, and it's time to dig. Once you've written it all down, the habits, the people, the lies, do something symbolic. Tear the page, burn it, rip it into pieces so small they can't be put back together. This isn't just theater. This is a message to your subconscious. You're not negotiating with your past anymore. You're not trying to fix it or manage it or make peace with it. You're leaving it behind. Because here's the thing about transformation. It doesn't happen gradually. It happens in moments. Moments when you decide that the person you've been is no longer the person you're willing to be. And in that moment, everything shifts. Not externally, not yet, but internally. Your posture changes, your voice steadens, your eyes sharpen. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not pretending, you're present. There's a man I knew once who spent 10 years in the same job he hated. Every Monday morning, he'd sit in his car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before walking in, just sitting there, staring at the building, trying to summon the energy to go through the motions one more time, is less than #0. 6# is greater than. He told himself it was responsible, that he was being practical, that this was just what adults did. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was scared. Scared that if he left, he'd discover he wasn't capable of more. Scared that his dreams were bigger than his ability. Scared that he'd end up worse off than he started. So he stayed. And every day, a little more of him died. Until one morning, he didn't get out of the car. He just sat there, engine off, watching people walk into the building. And he realized something. He wasn't afraid of failing. He was afraid of succeeding and discovering that he'd wasted years being too scared to try. That day, he quit. Not with a plan, not with savings, not with a safety net. He just walked away. And within 6 months, he'd built something that mattered more than that job ever did. Not because he was suddenly more talented, but because he was finally willing to bet on himself. You don't need a decade. You don't need years of preparation. You need one day, one decision, one moment where you stop negotiating with your fear and start moving despite it. Here's how you do it. Take 1 hour, just one, and dedicate it entirely to the thing you've been avoiding. No distractions, no interruptions, no half efforts. One focused, intentional hour where you act like the person you want to become. If you want to write, write for an hour. If you want to build, build for an hour. If you want to train, train for an hour. Just one. Because 1 hour of full presence is worth more than 100 hours of distracted effort. And that 1 hour will teach you something. You're more capable than you thought. The thing you've been avoiding isn't as hard as you imagined. And the version of you that shows up when you stop hesitating is the version that's been waiting to emerge. Do this every day. 1 hour. No excuses. No negotiation. And watch what happens. Not in a month. Not in a year. In a week, you'll feel different. In 2 weeks, you'll look different. In a month, people will start asking what changed. And you'll smile because you'll know. You stopped waiting. You started moving. And movement changes everything. There's a stillness that comes with action. It sounds contradictory, but it's true. When you're moving towards something real, the noise in your head quiets. The anxiety fades. The doubt softens. Because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're finally aligned. Your actions match your intentions. Your days reflect your values. Your life becomes a direct expression of who you are, not who you were told to be. And here's the part nobody talks about. It's lonely at first. When you decide to change, the world doesn't celebrate. It questions. It doubts. It waits to see if you're serious or if this is just another phase. Your friends might pull away. Your family might not understand. The people who knew the old you might not recognize the new one. And that's okay, because the people who are meant to walk with you will find you. Not the old you, the real you. There's a version of your life where you never take that first step, where you keep waiting for permission, for clarity, for the fear to go away. And in that version, you're still sitting in the same place. A year from now, 5 years from now, 10, still wondering, still wishing, still waiting for a moment that never comes. But there's another version, one where you decide today is the day, where you stop preparing and start moving, where you bet on yourself even though the odds aren't clear. And in that version, everything changes. Not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you finally become the kind of man who doesn't need it to be easy. You become the kind of man who shows up, who keeps his word to himself, who builds when others talk, who moves when others freeze, who rises when others quit. Not because you're special, but because you decided to be. Let me tell you what happens when you fix your life in one day. You don't become perfect. You don't solve every problem. You don't suddenly have all the answers, but you draw a line. A clear, undeniable line between the person you were and the person you're becoming. And once that line is drawn, everything on the other side of it starts to fade. The excuses, the doubts, the old patterns, they don't disappear overnight, but they lose their power because you're no longer negotiating with them. You're no longer asking if you should change. You've already decided. And that decision becomes the foundation of everything that follows. Every morning, you wake up and build on it. Every challenge you face with the knowledge that you've already chosen your path. Every setback you endure because turning back isn't an option anymore. This is how men are forged, not in comfort, not in certainty, but in the fire of a single decision that refuses to be undone. There's a quiet strength that comes from keeping promises to yourself, a dignity that no one can take from you. Because when you know you can trust yourself to do what you say you'll do, the world's opinion stops mattering so much. You're no longer looking for validation, you're generating it. Every day you show up, you prove to yourself that you're the kind of man who shows up. Every day you do the work, you prove you're the kind of man who does the work. And slowly, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to change. You start seeing yourself as someone who has changed. I won't lie to you. Some days will be hard. There will be mornings when you don't want to get up, when the old you whispers that it's okay to take a break, that you've earned a day off. That one missed day won't matter. But those are the days that matter most. Because discipline isn't tested when you feel motivated. It's tested when you feel empty. And on those days, you move anyway. Not because you want to, but because you said you would. And your word is everything. Let me paint you a picture. A man walking alone at dawn. The streets are empty. The air is cold. Most of the world is still asleep. But he's awake. He's moving. Not because someone told him to, not because he'll get recognition, but because he made a promise to himself. And he's the kind of man who keeps his promises. Nobody sees him, nobody applauds, but he doesn't need them to, because he's not doing this for an audience. He's doing it for the man he's becoming. And that man is worth every cold morning, every hard rep, every moment of discomfort. This is what fixing your life in one day actually means. It means deciding that the life you've been living is no longer acceptable, that the excuses you've been making are no longer convincing, that the fear you've been carrying is no longer in control. And it means taking one clear, definitive action that proves to yourself that you're serious. Not tomorrow, today. Maybe it's finally having that conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's ending that relationship that's been draining you. Maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off. Maybe it's simply looking in the mirror and saying out loud, I'm done living like this. Whatever it is, do it today, not next week, not when you feel ready, because you'll never feel ready. Readiness comes from doing, not from waiting. And when you take that first step, something shifts in the universe. I know that sounds abstract, but it's true. The moment you stop being a spectator and become a participant in your own life, opportunities appear that weren't there before. Not because the universe suddenly favors you, but because you're finally moving. And movement attracts momentum. Momentum attracts possibility. And possibility attracts the life you've been dreaming about. You've spent enough time in the audience. You've spent enough time watching other people build, create, succeed, and live. It's your turn. Not because you've earned it, not because you're ready, but because you're here. And being here is enough. So let me ask you something. What would happen if you stopped waiting? What would your life look like 6 months from now if you started today? Who would you become if you gave yourself permission to try? Not permission from the world, permission from yourself. Because that's the only permission that matters. I think about this a lot. The version of me that didn't start, the one that kept waiting, the one that listened to the fear instead of the fire. And I'm grateful every day that I didn't become him. Not because my life is perfect, but because it's mine. I'm not living someone else's script anymore. I'm not apologizing for taking up space. I'm not shrinking to make others comfortable. I'm just here, fully, unapologetically. And it's the freest I've ever been. You deserve that freedom too. Not someday, today. So take the step, make the call, write the word, lift the weight, have the conversation, draw the line, do the thing you've been putting off, and watch how quickly everything changes. Because here's the secret they don't tell you. The life you want isn't on the other side of some massive transformation. It's on the other side of a single decision. The decision to stop waiting and start being. One day. That's all it takes. One day where you show up differently, where you move with intention, where you refuse to negotiate with your excuses. One day where you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you've been settling for. And that one day becomes 2, then a week, then a month. And before you know it, you're living a completely different life. Not because everything around you changed, but because you did. So here we are, end of the road. You've heard the words, you've felt the pull. Now it's time to decide. Are you going to close this and go back to waiting, or are you going to take the first step today? The choice has always been yours. But the time to choose is now. Because the life you're meant to live is waiting, and it's been waiting long enough. If this spoke to you, if something in these words hits you where it matters, you need to watch our next video, How to Remember Everything You Read. It completes this lesson. Because changing your life means feeding your mind the right knowledge, and remembering it means using it. Go watch it now. Your future self is counting on you.